9. The great jazzmen were all persecuted minorities. Black men like Armstrong, Ellington, Coltrane, Parker. And the comedians were all Jews and black men. Leaving his mother's apartment, Erno saw himself the latest in history's long story of abused fighters for expressive freedom. Erno stalked around the perimeter road, head down. To his left, beyond the parapet, the crater's inner slope planted with groundsel, wild flowers, and hardy low-G modifications of desert scrub, fell away down to the agricultural fields, the park, and 2 kilometers distant, clear through the low-moisture air, the aspen-forested opposite slopes. To his right rose the ranks of apartments, refectories, dorms, public buildings, and labs, clusters of oblong boxes, growing higgledy-piggledy, planted with vines and hanging gardens, divided by ramps and stairs and walkways, a high-tech cliff city in pastel concrete glittering with ilmenite crystals. A small green lizard scuttled across the pebbled composite of the roadway and disappeared among some ground cover. Erno ignored the people on their way to work and back, talking or playing. He felt like smashing something. But smashing things was not appropriate cousin's behavior. In the southwest quad, he turned up a ramp into a residential district. These were newer structures, products of the last decade's planned expansion of living quarters occupied, for the most part, by new families. He moved upward by steady leaps, feeling the tension on his legs, enjoying the burn it generated. Near the top of the rim wall, he found Gilman 334. He pressed the door button. The screen remained blank, but after a moment, Alicia's voice came from the speaker. "Erno, come on in." The door opened, and he entered the apartment. It consisted mostly of an open lounge, furnished in a woven furniture with a couple of small rooms adjoining. 6 young women were sitting around inhaling mood enhancers, listening to music. The music was Monk. Brilliant Corners. Erno had given it to Alicia. She would never have encountered 20th century jazz otherwise. There was something wrong with Monk in this context. These girls ought to be listening to some lunar music, one of the airy mixed choral groups, or Sherry Cloud's Daughters' Sunlight or Rock. In this circle of females, the tossed-off lines of Sonny Rollins' sax, the splayed rhythms of Monk's piano, seemed as if they were being stolen, or worse still, studied, by a crew of aliens for whom they could not mean what they meant to Erno. "Hello," Erno said. "Am I crashing your party?" "You're not crashing." Alicia took him by the arm. "This is Erno," she said to the others. "Some of you know him." Sharon was there, one of the hottest women in Alicia's cohort at school. He had heard Sid talk about her. He recognized Betty, Sarah's daughter, Liz, Beth's daughter, both of them, like Alicia, studying social work, both of whom had turned him down at one time or another. Erno liked women as individuals, but in a group, their intimate laughter, gossip, and private jokes, as completely innocent as they might be, made him feel like he knew nothing about them. He drew Alicia aside. "Can we talk? In private?" "Sure," she said. She took Erno to one of the bedrooms. She sat on the bed, gestured to a chair. "What's the matter?" "I had a fight with my mother." "That's what mothers are for, as far as I can tell. And the constables are going to call me in for questioning. They think I may be involved in some conspiracy with Tyler Durden." "Do you know where he is?" Erno's defenses came up. "Do you care?" "I don't want to know where he is. If you know, keep it to yourself. I'm not your mother." "I could be in trouble." "A lot of us will stand behind you on this, Erno. Sharon and I would." She reached out to touch his arm. I'll go down to the center with you." Erno moved to the bed beside her. He slid his hand to her waist, closed his eyes, and rubbed his cheek against her hair. To his surprise, he felt her hand between his shoulder blades. He kissed her, and she leaned back. He looked into her face. Her green eyes, troubled, searched his. Her bottom lip was full. He kissed her again, slid his hand to her breast, and felt the nipple taut beneath her shirt. Leave aside the clumsiness, struggling out of their clothes, the distraction of straight no chaser from the other room, Erno's momentary thought of the women out there wondering what was going on in here, and it was the easiest thing in the world. He slid into Alicia as if he were coming home. Though his head swirled with desire, he tried to hold himself back to give her what she wanted. He kissed her all over. She giggled and teased him and twisted her fingers in his hair to pull him down to her, biting his lip. For 15 or 20 minutes, the society of cousins disappeared. Erno watched her face, watched her closed eyes and parted lips as she concentrated on her pleasure. It gave him a feeling of power. Her skin flushed, she gasped, shuddered, and he came. He rested his head upon her breast, eyes closed, breathing deeply, tasting the salt of her sweat. Her chest rose and fell, and he could hear her heart beating fast, then slower. He held her tight. Neither said anything for a long time. After a while, he asked her quietly, "Can I stay here?" Alicia stroked his shoulder, slid out from beneath him, and began to pull on her shirt. "I'll talk to Sharon." Sharon. Erno wondered how many of the other women in the next room Alicia was sleeping with. Alicia was a part of that whole scene, young men and women playing complex mating games that Erno was no good at. He had no idea what talking to Sharon might involve. But Alicia acted as if the thought of him moving in was a complete surprise. "Don't pull a muscle or anything stretching to grasp the concept," Erno said softly. Alicia reacted immediately. "Erno, we've never exchanged 2 words about partnering. What do you expect me to say?" "We did talk about it. In the park. You said you would talk to Sharon then. Why didn't you?" "Please, Erno." She drew up her pants, and the fabric seamed itself closed over her lovely long legs. "When you're quiet, you're so sweet." Sweet. Erno felt vulnerable, lying there naked with the semen drying on his belly. He reached for his clothes. "That's right," he muttered. "I forgot. Sex is the social glue. Fuck him so he doesn't cause any trouble." "Everything isn't about your penis, Erno. Durden is turning you into some self-destructive boy. Grow up." "Grow up?" Erno tugged on his pants. "You don't want me grown up. You want the sweet boy forever. I've figured it out now. You're never even there with me, except maybe your body. At least I think it was you." Alicia stared at him. Erno recognized that complete exasperation. He had seen it on his mother. From the next room drifted the sound of Blue Monk and women laughing. "Sharon was right," Alicia said, shaking her head. And she chuckled, a little rueful gasp, as if to say, "I can't believe I'm talking with this guy." Erno took a step forward and slapped her face. "You bitch," he breathed. "You fucking bitch." Alicia fell back, her eyes wide with shock. Erno's head spun. He fled from the room, ran through the party, and out of the apartment. It was full night now, the dome sprinkled with stars. He stalked down the switchback ramps toward the perimeter road, through the light thrown by successive lamp-posts in a straight-legged gait that kicked him off the pavement with every stride. He hoped that anyone who saw him would see his fury and think him dangerous. Down on the road, he stood at the parapet, breathing through his mouth and listening to the hum of insects in the fields below. In the lamplight far to his left, a person in a green uniform appeared. On impulse, Erno hopped over the parapet to the slope. Rather than wait for the constable to pass, he bounced off down toward the crater's floor, skidding where it was steep, his shoes kicking up dust. He picked up speed, making headlong 4 or 5 meter leaps, risking a fall every time his feet touched. It was too fast. 30 meters above the floor, he stumbled and went flying face forward. He came down sideways, rolled, and slammed his head as he flipped and skidded to a halt. He lay, trying to catch his breath. He felt for broken limbs. His shirt was torn and his shoulder ached. He pulled himself up and went down the last few meters to the crater floor, then limped through the fields for Sobieski Park. In a few minutes he was there, out of breath and sweating. At the fountain he splashed water on his face. He felt his shoulder gingerly, then made his way to the amphitheater. At first he thought the theater was deserted, but then he saw, down on the stage, a couple of women necking, oblivious to him. He stood in the row where he had spotted Alicia some weeks before. He had hit her. He couldn't believe he had hit her. 10. Erno slept in the park and in the morning headed for his biotech shift as if he had never stopped going. No one at the airlock questioned him. Apparently, even though his mind was chaos, he looked perfectly normal. The radiation warning had been renewed. Solar monitors reported conditions ripe for a coronal mass ejection. Cousins obliged to go out on the surface were being advised to keep within range of his radiation shelter. When Erno arrived at the bunker, he went to Lemmy O'Dealson's lab. Lemmy had not arrived yet. He sat down at his workstation, signed on to the system, pressed his thumb against the gene scanner, and accessed the database. He tried the general index. There was no file named exposition. Following Tyler's reference to gross, he looked for any references to the number 144. Nothing. Nothing on the gross structures of nucleotides either. He tried coming at it from the virus index. Dozens of viruses had been engineered by the cousins to deal with problems from soil microbes to cellular breakdowns caused by exposure to surface radiation. There was no virus called exposition. While he sat there, Lemmy showed up. He said nothing of Erno's sudden appearance after his extended absence. "We're making progress on integrating the morphological growth genes into the prototypes," he said excitedly. "The sequences for extracting silicon from the soil are falling into place." "That's good," Erno said. He busied himself cleaning up the chaos Lemmy typically left in his notes. After a while, he asked casually, "Lemmy, have you ever heard about a virus called exposition?" "Exposition?" Lemmy said vaguely, not looking up from a rack of test tubes. "Those prefixes go with female sex-linked factors. The Y position are the male." "Oh, right." As soon as Erno was sure Lemmy was caught up in his lab work, he turned back to the archives. First, he went to gender sites, a database he knew mostly for its concentration of anti-cancer modifications. Exposition led him to an encyclopedia of information on the X chromosome. Erno called up a number of files, but he saw no point in digging through gene libraries at random. He located a file of experiments on female-linked syndromes from osteoporosis to postmenopausal cardiac conditions. On a whim, he did a search on gross. Up popped a file labeled nucleotide repeats. When Erno opened the file, the heading read, "Get rid of slimy girls," an acronym for gross. The sounds of the lab around him faded as he read the paper.